There comes a time in every person's life when they must face the hardest truth of all. Success, growth, and transformation do not come from one big leap, but from the small, quiet steps repeated day after day. The world loves to glorify overnight victories, but what it does not show you is the long nights of discipline, the mornings of sacrifice, and the countless moments of silence where nobody clapped, nobody watched, and nobody cared except you. Consistency is not about proving yourself to the world. It is about keeping the promises you make to yourself when no one else is listening. It is about showing up, not for applause, not for recognition, but because deep down you know that the life you want cannot be built without it. Staying consistent is not easy. Life will test you. Temptations will whisper in your ear, distractions will pull you away, and doubt will sit heavy on your shoulders. But consistency is not about perfection. It is about persistence. It is the art of falling and rising, failing and continuing, stumbling yet moving forward anyway. When you learn to honor consistency, you teach yourself the rarest and most powerful form of love, self-respect. Because nothing says I believe in myself more than showing up even when motivation has left you. You see, it's easy to be consistent when you feel inspired, when the fire burns bright and the world feels like it's cheering you on. But true strength is revealed on the days you don't feel like it. On the days when you are tired, when progress feels invisible, when quitting seems more comfortable than continuing. Those are the days that separate the dreamers from the doers. Consistency is not built on the mountaintop, it is forged in the valleys, in the shadows, in the silence where only your willpower remains. And let me tell you something, every time you choose to stay consistent, you are casting a vote for the future you desire. One workout may not change your body, but 100 will. 1 hour of study may not make you an expert, but 1,000 will. One step toward your goal may not transform your life, but 1,000 will. Consistency is the quiet architect of greatness. It will not always feel rewarding in the moment, but it is always building something greater than you can see. So ask yourself, who are you doing this for? If the answer is yourself, then you have already won. Because when you fight for yourself, when you refuse to abandon yourself, when you decide that your own word is sacred, you become unstoppable. You stop chasing quick results, and instead you start becoming the person who cannot be shaken, cannot be broken, cannot be moved. Consistency becomes your armor, your shield, and your sword. Now here is the truth you must hold on to. Your life will only change when you stay consistent long enough to outlast your excuses. Do not wait for motivation. Do not wait for the perfect time. Do not wait for permission. Start now. Keep going. And the road feels endless. Remember this. The only way you fail is if you quit. Stay consistent. Stay committed. Stay true to yourself. Because if you do, there will come a day when the world finally sees the greatness you built in silence. Now rise, take your first step today, and never break the promise you made to yourself. The future you dream of is waiting, but only if you show up for it every single day. Motivation is a spark, but discipline is the fire that keeps burning when the spark has faded into smoke. Too many people wait for motivation, as if it will arrive like a guest knocking at the door. They believe they must feel ready before they act, and so they wait, and they wait, and they wait, until years pass them by. The truth is, if you wait for motivation to come to you, you may never begin. Motivation is fickle. It is emotional, unreliable, and temporary. Some days it roars inside of you, and other days it vanishes without warning. But discipline is the steady hand that pulls you forward when every part of you screams to turn back. Discipline is not about feelings. It is about commitment. It does not ask how you feel today. It does not care if you are tired. It does not excuse you because the day was long or the weather was cold. Discipline says, you promised yourself, and now you must keep that promise. When you learn to choose discipline over motivation, you unlock the secret to consistency. Because the truth is, you will not always feel like working on your goals. You will not always wake up with energy, with drive, with fire in your chest. But if you have discipline, you will show up anyway. You will push forward anyway. And that act of doing what needs to be done despite how you feel is what separates the successful from the ordinary. Every great achievement you admire in others, every mountain conquered, every legacy written, was built not in moments of high motivation, but in the trenches of discipline. Think about the student who studies late into the night, not because they feel motivated, but because they are disciplined enough to chase their future. Think about the athlete who trains in silence, who wakes up before the sun, not because motivation shakes them awake, but because discipline demands they honor their craft. Think about the writer who sits before the blank page each day, facing the weight of silence, not because inspiration always flows, but because discipline has taught them that words appear for those who keep showing up. Discipline is not glamorous. It is not loud. It does not shine in the moment. But over time, it builds an unshakable foundation. Discipline teaches you patience, and patience teaches you mastery. Discipline teaches you sacrifice, and sacrifice teaches you strength. Discipline teaches you perseverance, and perseverance carries you further than you could ever imagine. With discipline, you stop living in bursts, and you begin to live in rhythm. You begin to create patterns of success, cycles of growth, and a life that no longer relies on the unstable winds of motivation. Every day you choose discipline, you cast a vote for the person you want to become. One skipped day of motivation does not break you, but one skipped act of discipline can start the slow unraveling of your progress. Discipline is not punishment. It is the highest form of self-love. It is telling yourself, I am worth the effort, even on the days I don't feel like it. It is the ability to silence excuses and replace them with action, because in the end, consistency is nothing more than discipline practiced over and over, until it becomes who you are. The world often tells you to chase the big moments, the grand victories, the defining milestones that make headlines and capture applause. But what it does not tell you is that those great victories are built on the back of small, ordinary wins. The quiet triumphs that happen when nobody is watching, when nobody is clapping, when nobody even notices. Small wins are the bricks that build the fortress of consistency. And if you learn to honor them, you will create momentum so powerful that nothing can stop you. The truth is, most people give up because they underestimate the power of the small steps. They want change instantly. They want results overnight. They want the reward without respecting the process. But life does not work that way. You cannot climb a mountain in a single leap. You take it step by step, breath by breath, moment by moment. And every step you take, no matter how small, is proof that you are moving forward. Those small wins may seem insignificant now, but they are compounding, stacking, building into something extraordinary. Think about the person who commits to drinking more water, who takes a short walk each day, who chooses to read a single page of a book instead of scrolling endlessly on a phone. At first, these actions seem trivial, almost laughable in their simplicity, but over time, they accumulate. That walk becomes a mile. That page becomes a library of wisdom. That simple act of choosing discipline over distraction reshapes their life entirely. The small win may not feel powerful in the moment, but it is the seed of transformation, and when planted daily, it will grow into a tree of greatness. When you honor your small wins, you shift your perspective. You stop focusing on what you lack and start acknowledging what you've gained. You begin to see yourself as someone who is capable, consistent, and committed. That shift in identity is everything. Because the greatest transformation does not happen outside of you, it happens within you. Every time you celebrate a small win, you are reinforcing to yourself that you are capable of change, that you are moving forward, that you are not stagnant. And when your mind believes it, your life begins to follow. It is easy to dismiss the small victories, to think it's not enough, to feel that unless the progress is dramatic, it is meaningless. But this is a dangerous lie, because consistency is built through the accumulation of small wins. And if you dismiss them, you dismiss the very foundation of your success. A person who waits only for the big moments will starve, but the one who honors the small wins will feast every single day. Look at history, at invention, at mastery. It is never one big act that defines greatness. It is countless hours of practice, of small choices, of steady progress. The musician who plays a symphony once first spent years mastering single notes. The artist who paints a masterpiece first sketched countless lines. The leader who moves nations first learned to discipline their own thoughts. All of it began with small wins, honored, respected, and repeated. So when you wake up and complete the smallest of tasks, when you resist one temptation, when you choose the harder right over the easier wrong, know that you have already won. The world may not applaud you, but that moment is sacred, because it is proof of your consistency. It is proof that you are building momentum brick by brick, choice by choice. And while the big victories may be celebrated by the crowd, it is the small wins, honored daily, that will quietly change your entire life. Excuses are the silent killers of dreams. They creep in quietly, dressed in logic and comfort, whispering that you deserve to rest, that tomorrow will be better, that one skipped day won't matter. At first they feel harmless, even reasonable, but excuses are thieves, and their mission is to steal your consistency before you even realize what's been taken. If you allow them to linger, they will rob you of time, progress, and ultimately the future you could have built. Habits, on the other hand, are the antidote. They are the invisible scaffolding that holds your life together, the quiet rituals that carry you forward even when willpower feels thin and motivation is nowhere to be found. To stay consistent, you must stop giving your energy to excuses and instead pour it into building habits so strong that excuses have no room to breathe. Habits work in silence. They do not ask for applause, nor do they wait for the perfect moment. They simply exist day after day, molding your behavior, shaping your identity, defining the trajectory of your life. When you build habits, you no longer have to fight the endless battle of decision-making. You do not ask yourself every morning whether you will show up. You simply do. You do not waste energy wrestling with whether you will take action, because the action has already become part of who you are. That is the power of habits. They transform consistency from something you have to force into something you naturally live. Excuses, however, are seductive. They are born from comfort, from fear, from doubt, and they disguise themselves as protection. You're too tired. You've already worked hard enough. It won't matter if you skip today. These voices are not your allies. They are the enemy within. And every time you listen, you teach yourself that excuses have authority over your life. But when you silence those voices with habits, you reclaim that authority. You tell yourself, my actions are not controlled by how I feel, but by the systems I have chosen to live by. Think about the person who chooses to wake up at the same time every day. At first it is difficult. At first it feels unnatural, forced, even painful. But over time, the body adjusts, the mind adapts, and soon the habit takes root. They no longer rely on willpower to rise each morning. Their habit pulls them into action automatically. Think about the person who commits to exercising daily. At first, the weight feels heavy, the routine feels awkward, the progress feels invisible. But one day, without realizing it, the habit takes hold. They no longer debate whether or not they will exercise. They simply do because it has become a part of who they are. Habits are the great equalizer. You do not need to be the smartest, the strongest, or the most talented. If you can build habits and protect them from excuses, you will outlast the ones who rely solely on bursts of effort, because effort that comes and goes cannot compete with the steady rhythm of a habit that never fails. The person who trains inconsistently with brilliance will always fall behind the person who trains consistently with simplicity. The habit is the difference maker, the secret weapon of the relentless. So understand this. Your future is not built by the grand gestures you occasionally make. It is built by the habits you practice daily. Excuses will try to lure you away, offering comfort in exchange for progress. But comfort never changed a life. Progress never came from surrendering to ease. If you want consistency, build habits so strong that even on your weakest days, your actions remain unshaken. Because when your habits are in place, excuses lose their power, and your life becomes a reflection of discipline, not delay. The greatest trap you can fall into is living for the eyes of others. Too many people shape their lives around applause, around recognition, around the fleeting validation of being noticed. They post their progress waiting for likes. They share their victories, hoping for praise. And when no one claps, when no one notices, they slow down, they stop, they quit. But consistency was never meant to be fueled by the opinions of others. It was always meant to be built for you by you, because you are the one who must live with the results, and you are the one who must endure the consequences. If you want to stay consistent, you must free yourself from the chains of external validation and make the decision to show up for yourself, no matter who is watching. Doing it for you is the purest form of power. It is the moment when you realize that your worth is not tied to applause, and your progress is not diminished because it goes unnoticed. True strength is not in proving others wrong, it is in proving yourself right. It is in honoring your goals, your vision, your journey, even when the crowd is silent. Because one day, when the noise dies down and the people fade away, it will only be you and the life you built with your own hands. When you do it for them, you set yourself up for exhaustion. Because people are unpredictable, their attention is fleeting, their approval shifts like the wind. If your consistency is tied to their recognition, then so is your worth, and that is a dangerous place to live. But when you do it for you, you build something unshakable. You begin to see progress not as a performance, but as a promise that you will not abandon yourself, a promise that your goals matter even if nobody else believes in them. That promise is where real consistency begins. Think about the person who shows up to the gym, not to impress anyone, not to prove a point, but because they promised themselves they would. Think about the writer who fills page after page in silence, not for praise, not for fame, but because they respect their own voice enough to let it live. Think about the student who studies relentlessly, not because anyone is watching, but because they refuse to betray their own potential. These are the ones who endure, because their fuel does not come from outside. It burns from within. When you finally decide to do it for yourself, consistency stops being a burden and starts being an act of self-love. You begin to realize that every act of discipline, every sacrifice, every small step forward is a gift to your future self. You stop asking, will they notice, and start asking, will this make me better? That shift in mindset transforms everything. Suddenly, failure no longer feels like shame because it is part of your personal growth. Progress no longer feels slow because you are no longer racing against others. Consistency no longer feels like punishment because it is not for them. It is for you. And the beautiful thing is this. When you live for yourself, when you stay consistent, because you refuse to betray your own word, the world eventually notices anyway. But by then, their recognition is only an echo of the deeper reward you already carry inside. The reward of knowing that you did not quit on yourself, that you honored your path, that you built your life not on the shaky ground of other people's opinions, but on the solid foundation of your own relentless commitment.